What's going on, everybody? Can't overdo it with another video, and in this one I'm going to be ranking every piece of media that I consumed in the month of August 2025. And this was rough. I actually got through a lot of good media this month, in particular the top 3 on this list, but because I got through all that good media, this list was miserable to try to put together, especially the top 3, but we got a lot of words before that because the script ended up being almost 6,000 words because I wanted to write a full script for this video. Do keep in mind there are going to be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want to be spoiled on anything, there are timestamps down below, so you can skip around to just the series that either you don't care about getting spoiled on or that you've already read, watched, played, whatever. But I'm not going to waste any time, let's just get straight into it. At number 10, the worst piece of media that I got through this month was pretty easily Depths of Malice. This is a bizarre one, where it was actually recommended to me courtesy of a coworker, which I should say I otherwise wouldn't have picked this up. Despite having read a fair amount of eroge visual novels, I've never actually delved into a smut manhwa, but hey, first time for everything. And obviously, being a smut manhwa, it is 18 and up, but the smut scenes themselves were a lot less frequent than I expected, in a good way. Towards the start of the manhwa, there were a few, but they served to show Verta's, our protagonist, motives. Likewise, towards the end of the manhwa, there were a few, but they felt deserved due to the brewing relationship between the two titular characters, and the middle of the manhwa was actually pretty barren of smut content, which was a nice surprise. So, Depths of Malice is a villainess manhwa focusing on the titular Verta, who, similar to Your Throne, ends up body swapping, in a position where she meets a mysterious somebody who agrees to swap her body. Verta, a princess who seemingly has everything together, and Rita, a girl with terminal illness on death's door. Verta laments about how much she envies Rita for being able to die and be done with life, which Rita, understandably, is not a very big fan of. I know, surprising stuff. So the body swap happens, the former Verta dies in Rita's body, and Rita, now in Verta's body, gets to experience the real life she deserves. However, she very quickly realizes that the previous Verta had her own share of problems going on. In particular, she went through a lot of SA. And if you don't know what SA is, you're probably not old enough to, so don't worry about it for now. Just imagine she had some bad stuff happening to her. In any case, the new Verta, who going forward will just be called Verta, swears revenge on any who had brought harm to the previous owner of her body. The general plot of Depths of Malice is just that. Verta gets revenge. Like, a lot of revenge. My main issue with Verta is that, although I do find her consistently rootable and pretty compelling, her idea of revenge is, interesting, where a lot of it, and I do mean a lot, is completely justified. We're watching a bad person do bad stuff to even worse people, that's great. But there are times where they just don't deserve it, like, what? For example, right, in this manhwa, we see her deal with some really horrible people who have committed unforgivable, reprehensible actions. They did bad stuff. She also has a bossy coworker who's kind of annoying, so she ruins her life. Like, I get that, like, later on, we learn that, like, her husband was terrible, but, like, Verta didn't know that at the time. She just ruined somebody's life over an inconvenience. And, yeah, the chick was unnecessarily mean to Verta, and quite clearly did not like Verta based on her words and actions, but after seeing Verta viciously go after horrible people, this was just petty. Like, super petty. On the topic of Verta, I liked her a lot. Now, granted, she's no Medea, she's no Penelope, she's no Ravio, but she's still a villainess, and she's just fun overall. But she's actually not the only character who I want to bring up. So there's this dude named Blaine, and Blaine is awesome. Very easily the second best character in my opinion. He was my rooting interest throughout, and that bum crown prince did not deserve those epilogue chapters. I don't know what they were cooking. Anyways, I did have a good amount of fun here, but if I'm being realistic, I couldn't bring myself to score this any higher than a 6.5 out of 10. And speaking of a 6.5 out of 10, I'm going to be, like, doing little number rankings because I want to. So, yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for this one. And we are jumping up a good bit on the score system. At number 9, I have a Golden Courtyard. This is going to be the shortest one on the whole list. Alright, yeah, I liked this a lot, and pure enjoyability-wise, it solos most of the board here. For the uninitiated, Golden Courtyard is an anime spanning a whopping 2 whole episodes of the cast of the Elysian Realm and Honkai Impact 3rd, which we will be talking about throughout the video since I finished the Elysian Realm story arc this month. This is basically a slice of life, what if, and it was just really fun to watch. It gave me similar feelings to that of the Cooking with Valkyries manhwa from a good while back, which I also really enjoyed. This was just fun. It didn't add that much to the grand scheme of things, but it was a very good time. I enjoyed it a lot. 8 out of 10. Now for number 8, and I really debated if I even wanted to put this on the list or if I wanted to wait until I completed the whole thing, quote unquote, or I guess the first half, but I ended up deciding I'm not going to divide Higurashi into the question and answer arcs for the sake of these media mosaics. I'm just going to talk about the episodes themselves. So at number 8, I have Higurashi no Nakukoro ni Onikakushi, which is the first episode of the visual novels. For Higurashi in particular, though, I do kinda need to go over my history with the series, because such a thing does in fact exist, and I think it really contextualizes my thoughts on the series at large for now. I'll take you now on a walk through history, back in the good old days of Funimation. I know, back when the dinosaurs were around and such. I was pretty new to anime, but I read Doki Doki Literature Club, and as much of a shocker as this might be, I liked that visual novel a lot. So much so that I browsed Funimation looking for something even remotely similar. And there it stood. The currently airing Higurashi no Nakukoro ni Go, with kawaii anime girl on the cover and, what's that? Psychological horror tag. I found my DDLC anime and locked in. And I watched it. And I liked it a lot. I did watch the sequel as well when that aired, Higurashi Sotsu. And I liked Higurashi Sotsu less, but this is not a review about that. At the time, I heard complaints about the Higurashi anime, and I was confused, because I personally liked it a lot. Only to then find out that this anime was a weird remake sequel thing that I didn't really understand at the time, where it was marketed as a remake, but pretty much quickly devolved into a sequel, leading to a general wave of disappointment from fans of the original series. Seeing that disappointment, I decided I would watch the original anime, and I never got past episode 7. Not because it was bad, but at the time, I was newer to anime, and I didn't like to watch it in subbed, so I watched it in dub, and just watch the original Higurashi dub. It's truly an experience of all time, for sure. So anyhow, fast forward a few years, and here we are, and I'm reading the original visual novel with the 7th mod expansion for better sprites and OST, because, obviously. I do think all this pretext is important, though, to set the stage, because now coming into Higurashi, there are things that I know to look out for. My memory of the series, specifically in regards to, well, the specifics, is a bit hazy, but I'm inherently spoiled on a few things, so do keep that in mind. With that being said, Onikakushi was still a pretty fun ride. Higurashi is a mostly slice-of-life story centering around a small remote village called Hinamizawa, featuring the likes of our protagonist, Keiichi, and the rest of the game club he joins, including Best Girl Mion, the kawaii anime girl on the Higurashi Go cover, Rena, the girl of spoilers, Rika, and, I guess Saiko's also there. However, in classic When They Cry fashion, everything is not as it seems as a bizarre mystery begins to take shape around the main cast. Again, I was spoiled, so I do know about Keiichi's unreliable narration in this episode, and some of the scenes were rough to read. I'm looking forward to episode 2, Watanagashi, but I'm not looking forward to figuring out which Sonozaki is which in every individual scene. That's going to be an actual nightmare. But I did enjoy the first episode here, and the current plan is to read the rest of the question arcs 2 through 4, taking a break to read a different visual novel and then coming back for the answer arcs, but overall, 8 out of 10. But at number 7, I have Honkai Impact 3rd, Chapter 29, Tochter aus Elysium, which I completely butchered, by the way, but that's neither here nor there, dog. Chapter 29 starts with a review of the Elysian Realm game mode to catch us up to speed for those who didn't play through those, which will be pretty essential for this arc, because it's the rest of the Elysian Realm arc, with our illustrious main star, Elysia, utilizing such exquisite verbiage, truly the pinnacle of sophisticated vocabulary in our very lexicon, like BFF, boo-hoo, and non-non. Truly an intellectual, I know. As we learn by the very existence of the Elysian Realm, most of the 13 Flame Chasers are already dead. The heroes of a bygone era, and Elysia swears to reveal everything to Mei in this arc, from the formation of the 13 Flame Chasers until the fateful, beautiful banquet. The setup for this arc is shown to be a happy and somber one. It's very bittersweet as we watch Mei begin to puzzle out what really happened in the past as a mysterious fog covers the island of the banquet. And soon, the real arc will begin. May and Alicia promise to meet one another the following morning, only for Alicia to act out of character and not show up. This is May we're talking about. Alicia would always show up no matter what. We soon find out that the reason for Alicia's absence is because she, Alicia's sim in the realm, has been killed. At this point, we can deduce that there's a traitor, because the only people in the realm are May and the rest of the Flame Chasers. This here is an anecdote from my own playthrough after Alicia's death. Okay, but assuming there is a traitor, right? In the Flame Chasers, I'm gonna run down each of them real quick for the hell of it. First off the list, Alicia, obviously. Who would have thought? Griseo is another definitely not, and by extension Cosmo, because his relationship with Griseo feels genuine. Mobius and Apponia are too obvious, so it's not them. Highly doubt it could be Kevin or Hua. Doesn't feel like it'd be Eden, it'd be too out of left field. Culpus ain't smart enough to pull it off, and that leaves Vilvi, Sue, Sakura, and Pardafelis. I'm gonna just strike Felis off, because she's not that far off of Culpus. I know it's not Sakura, just based on the logic of I like her, I don't want it to be her, but yeah, Sue and Vilvi are the most suspicious. Now mind you, at this point, I was in full Umineko no Nakukoro ni mode, questioning everything. Even that the typewriter that never lies saying Alicia is dead was actually replaced, the broken one was a fake, and that the real typewriter was being hidden. I was wrong. Don't be like me. We find out that something is very, very wrong. Sakura and Calpus both had their data corrupted before finding out that Kevin Kazlana was now also among the deceased. What a way to start an arc. We'll continue this arc later on, but I'm going to put a pin in it for now. At this point, I lamented the idea that this chapter, whilst very good, was simply setup, and whilst that setup was really, really damn good, and I can't stress that enough, it was still just a setup. 8 out of 10. From one setup to another entry that walked so that another could run, and we will talk about it. At number 6, I have Bang Dream, It's My Go. Alright, let's do it. Bang Dream, It's My Go has a few things working against it on this list. The first of which being that it's a 3D anime, and I'd rather just watch a 2D anime. I have bias against 3D anime, and whilst the 3D rigging in this was mostly handled well, I'd rather it just not be 3D in the first place. The other main thing working against my go here is that Ave Mujica exists, which, spoiler alert, we will be talking about later on the list, and Ave Mujica takes what Mygo did and did it better in basically every possible way. But we'll get to the Ave Mujica glaze later. Let's focus on Mygo for now. The setup here is actually pretty interesting. As I understand it, Bang Dream is actually a gacha game series, probably a rhythm-based gacha game on account of this being a banned anime. I've never played the game, I don't plan to, but on a quick side note, I genuinely want to play Arknights, of all things. I know it sounds like a tangent, hear me out. They're bringing Ave Mujica cast members into the game as a collab event, and Mygo. This is about Mygo. Anyways, the Bang Dream series is so much crazier than I thought, because Mygo and the other band actually have a real-life counterparts, and each band member in the show is voice acted by the members of the real-life band. That's so cool! But okay, for real, let's talk about the anime itself. At the very start of Mygo, we see a band, Kreishik, break up. It's a really rough scene, intentionally so. The tension is clearly very high between these characters, and it leaves a sense of how did we get here? We'll leave that aside for now. In Mygo, we follow Anon, a self-centered chatty girl who's trying to get a band going centered around herself, obviously. She meets a strange girl called Tomori, who is later found out by Anon to be a member of the failed Kreishik. They become amicable, pick up Taki and Soyo, two girls who were also in Kreishik. They begin to form bonds among one another, becoming a new band. Before that party is crashed by Rana, a girl with heterochromia they nickname Stray Cat, who decides she's going to join the band because, well, we don't really know. She just finds the girls interesting, and that's enough for her. Dude, she's just kind of vibing throughout the whole show. Dude, I don't know what's going on through her head. I don't think it's much. And while she is vibing, we as the audience get to play the family game show, Who's Gonna Have a Mental Breakdown this episode? A rich, enticing game of deduction whereupon one of our titular characters is going to be assuredly tossed into the ringer only to be brought back up by her friends. And that's really the formula here for Mygo. These girls are all broken, lost, and yet they've all found a home with this new band. Some may have had ulterior motives, others wore their motives on their sleeves, and others just lived for the moment. Bang Dream It's My Go is a heartwarming story of a group of misfits finding comfort in the company of one another. And we'll be talking more about Bang Dream later. 8.5 out of 10. At number 5, I have Shibo Yugi Volume 4. I'm a big proponent of this series. I like it a lot, so much so that to date I finished each volume in one sitting, and Volume 4 here was no different. In Volume 4, we spend a good chunk of the volume outside of the death games, which I really appreciate, and I think it does bode well for future volumes. The game, Halloween Night, was alright. It's no Candlewoods, but it was still good enough. It's above Ghost House for me, at least. Hitomi herself was a fun character. I'm looking forward to her in the future. The sets of twins were serviceable. But Shion was a good antagonist. But, I mean, let's be real, she's not even close to Meishiro. However, my favorite non-Yuki character coming out of the volume ended up being Tamamo. And I find this plot point so fucking hilarious. Where Tamamo is this short, stubby girl who asks Yuki to be her mentor. Yuki accepts on the condition that Tamamo tags her, which Yuki knows is a nigh impossible task just looking between their statures. This condition is not only impossible, but it also meant literally nothing to Yuki. It was a pure throwaway comment. So naturally, after the events of Halloween Night, some time passes before Tamamo, now different in appearance, catches up to Yuki in her apartment and prepares to be taken under Yuki's wing. This is how you end the Shibo Yugi volume. I found this shit hilarious. I'm so looking forward to their dynamic and how it develops over time. Speaking of Yuki, we get a lot of content around her eye in this volume, and it's shown repeatedly that her eyesight in that eye is deteriorating at an alarming pace. Yuki herself is still the main reason to read the series. She's a great protagonist, and I'm looking forward to the anime in January, and also Volume 5 the following month. 8.5 out of 10. Moving now on to number 4. I have Honkai Impact 3rd, Chapter 30, Marcia, Funebre. Again, I probably butchered it. I'm not gonna, try to look up the pronunciation. I'm just sounding it out, guys. This was the easiest piece of media to place on this entire list, bar maybe Depths of Malice at the bottom, because my top 3 coming into the list were incredibly definitive. Anyhow, Chapter 30 picks up right back from 29, so let's get back into the Elysian Realm arc, shall we? To jog your memory, Kevin and Alicia are dead, Sakura and Kalpis are corrupted. So, anyways, with that being said, Vilvi takes us to an amusement park. I'm dead ass. She watches 4 of her friends die, and 2 of them die, I guess, and then 2 of them become corrupted. And then she's like, hey, let's go to a theme park. I mean, fuck it, why not? I'm sure she's mentally stable. Vilvi then suggests to May that the main suspects on her list ought to be Sakura, Mobius, Kalpis, and Epona. Vilvi's wrong, because I didn't suspect any of them except kind of Sakura, I guess. Kazuma and Griseo have a depressing conversation about Kazuma wanting to be a hero. However, everyone told Griseo her parents were heroes, and they're no longer around. P.S. They died. So she asks Kazuma, everybody's a hero, but what about me? After some light crying and some ensuing Umineko brain rot, we find ourselves proving Partofelis' innocence by perusing through her memories. At this point, I was certain. Partofelis is definitely going to die in this chapter. Girl is getting way too much screen time. Anyways, then Mobius died. I was pissed, bro. I ain't even gonna try to hide it. At this point in time, I had Mobius as my favorite of the Flame Chasers, and I was really banking on her being a red herring just because she's Mobius, but we lost her way too early. Also, I assumed at this point we were going to whittle down the Flame Chasers, and I had a heart-to-heart with myself here. How in the ever-loving forkballs did we lose Alicia, Kevin, and Mobius first? I'm gonna be so pissed if it's Sakura eating an Epona next. Please live. Anyways, yeah, Partofelis died, no shit. And Vilvi is revealed to dabble in a small amount of mental trickery and tomfoolery, revealing that she suffered in solitude for 50,000 years. Well, at least one of her personalities did, and Angela Project Moon is rolling in her grave. My game bugged, and I had to reset momentarily. I actually put that in the script. But we did end up losing Calpus and Aponia soon after, revealing that the Hersher of Corruption, Hersher, that word didn't come up a lot. I'm going to say Hersher. The Hersher of Corruption has descended. After a minor inconvenience of dealing with a 20 times lesser Solitude Enjoyer version of Angelo, we see that evil Vilvi is brought down by our hands, and that Vilvi herself is a con artist after all. Hersher of Corruption then reveals herself in the form of Elysia, the start and end of everything. Chapter 30 was definitely a step up, in particular the Calpus content towards the end and Vilvi herself, going through the small process of hating herself so much that she gained the ability to dissociate herself. Fun times. Chapter 30 is but another stepping stone in this arc, which we will finish up soon enough. 9 out of 10. At number 3. And the top 3 here are miserable to put together in relation to one another. How do I rank these? I'm gonna just rip the band-aid off here. All 3 of these entries are 10 out of 10 for me. However, everything has to go somewhere. So, despite how much I'm about to glaze it, somehow, I've got Ave Mujica at number 3. And Ave Mujica is, with no exaggeration, one of the single best anime I've ever watched, and I've watched a not small amount of anime. According to my anime list, which if you feel like viciously tearing me apart from my subjective taste, the user is the same as my channel tag here on YouTube. I've watched 204 seasons of anime, and Ave Mujica ranks among the best of the best for me, so let's talk about why. Before I talk about why, I'm gonna explain now why I have this at number 3 and not higher. It's a 3D anime. That's genuinely the deal breaker for why this is not higher on the list. Otherwise, I probably would have put it a spot higher. Ave Mujica is a 3D anime, and I don't like 3D anime. Genuinely, that's the main complaint here, because from episode 1 to episode 13, this anime did not disappoint. The 3D aspects, like the raking and such, was actually handled even better than it was in Maigo, which I thought was already decent. It was handled really well here, to the point where there were times where I would forget I was even watching a 3D anime, but there were also times where I would remember. So it's number 3. As I said with Maigo, I literally want to start Arknights because of the Ave Mujica collab, and there is a real band, Ave Mujica. And as an aside, I'm about 3,500 words into this script, which now, as I'm recording it, should let you know the script ended up being about 6,000 words, so we're only a little bit past halfway done. But anyways, at the time of writing the script, I was listening to an Ave Mujica playlist on Spotify the entire time. Ave Mujica, Kill Kiss, and Alter Ego were my favorite songs, with an honorable mention to Georgette Me, Georgette You, Crucifix 10, and Imprisoned 12, both with the Roman numerals for those. But alright, Ave Mujica follows the likes of Sakiko and Mutsumi, the other 2 members of the old Kreischick band, who also decide they're going to form a new band, named Ave Mujica, who would have thought. With the likes of a self-obsessed Nyamu, a girl in too many bands already, Umidi, and Uika, who's totally chill, she ain't got nothing going on. She knows Sakiko, and Sakiko needs someone else in the band, so Uika agrees. Now at this point, you might be thinking, oh, so it's like Maigo 2, Electric Boogaloo, but with other characters, and to that I say Lamau. So in Maigo, I brought up how everybody had their own issues, but they worked on them together, and they all felt a sense of community, belonging within that group. Ave Mujica is not that. Like in Maigo, we get to play the family game show, who's going to have a mental breakdown this episode, but instead of finding therapy in other band members, they just kind of, escalate everyone's problems constantly. The way that Ave Mujica was defined to me was that it's like watching a car crash, and then a car crash, and then a car crash, and then a car crash, to which I'm very proud of the analogy that I personally came up with, where imagine that you're watching the Mental Health Olympics, and in the later half, the judge decides that we're playing by golf rules. That is basically the Ave Mujica experience. They all need therapy, bro. The Ave Mujica band members decide to wear masks at the behest of Sakiko to add some mystery to their band, to give their band a story the audience can watch unfold as they break into theater before going into their songs. Whilst everyone agrees and all is well and good, Nyamu, who got bored, decided she didn't like that, and thus everyone on stage had their masks removed, cause why not, I guess. Seriously, how the fuck did that happen so quickly? I 100% expected there to be this big reveal at the very end where they all take their masks off and it's this big cathartic moment. And then it's not that at all. And then, I mean, screw it, why not? Let's just have Mutsumi completely snap on stage. And I mean the threads above her holding her up. Like a puppet with her strings cut, Mutsumi slumps into her chair in complete silence, slowly going insane, developing a new personality in Mortis, her stage persona, who acts completely opposite to Mutsumi. And Mortis doesn't even know how to play the guitar. Nyamu gets frustrated at how much of a genius actor Mutsumi must be. Sakiko's upset because her home situation is god-awful, coming from a well-off family, only to decide to live with her dad, whose world ended with the death of Sakiko's mother, so he's not doing the best ever. Quick sidebar, I didn't even write it in the script, but this is why the original Kreischick band disbanded, because Sakiko was going through the ringer, and it was around this point where Sakiko's dad was basically kicked out of the family, and Sakiko decided to go live with him instead, even though it was in this really shitty rundown apartment where he began to suffer from alcoholism. But anyhow, back to the script. Uika, being the doting friend and nothing more she is, invites Sakiko to live with her, all while Umidi finds out from the goat Taki that she's untrustworthy on account of being in many different bands and being unable to commit to one. MyGo members are also here at points trying to mend offenses with the likes of Sakiko and Mutsumi while they perform as Kreischick one more time. By the way, Anon, whatever you want to say her name is, had a really great moment where she gave up her guitar to Mutsumi so that Kreischick could perform, which was just a really great moment for her and really helped make her a better character, in my opinion. However, what they did not expect was that during this performance of Kreischick, Umidi was actually there, and she realized that the real Eve Mujica was the friend she made along the way. So, much like the original Kreischick, she wants to get everyone back together, just like we did in MyGo. You guys seeing the connections? Oh my god! Nyamu struggles to find acting gigs because of her ruthless pursuit of being as good as Mutsumi, and agrees to join Eve Mujica again so long as Mutsumi, who she both loves and hates, more on that later, joins as well. Naturally, Umidi takes the very reasonable approach of ignoring Mutsumi's identity crisis and having Mortis just mimic the song so that she can play the guitar just like Mutsumi did. Uika, meanwhile, jealous of Tomori writing great lyrics, decides she's going to give it a shot in the form of what amounts to a confession of love to Sakiko, only for Nyamu to decide she's bored and sends the lyrics to the group chat. Dude, Nyamu's just chaotic, bro. Uika and Sakiko are doing their best as well until, Sakiko's grandpa calls Uika by the name of Hatsune and tells her to go home. What? Well, Hatsune is an illegitimate child of Sakiko's grandpa, making her Sakiko's aunt, don't worry about it, who cosplayed as her younger sister Uika because she just really ultra-turbo Yuri likes Sakiko. Don't worry about it. Uika then goes on a 20-minute monologue. That's an episode of the show. Uika's monologue is an episode of the show. And it's probably the best episode in the show. And it's literally nothing but Uika on a stage explaining her story. And for the very keen listeners that have also suffered immense brain damage, yes, this is literally Umineko episode 7, and it's not the only allusion to Umineko. If you are an Umineko enjoyer, watch MyGo, because after watching MyGo, you can watch Ave Mujica, which has multiple direct references to Umineko, including the magic ending. You can't make this shit up, dude. Anyways, after some brain rot of the Euphoria visual novel about two characters' backstories and their love of stars, I'm not going to get into it, Uika and Sakiko also realize that the real Ave Mujica was the friends they made along the way. The ending of Ave Mujica is a relatively happy one on paper, but it's clearly so fucking toxic, and I'm very excited for the following season. If there is something to say, though, I do wish we got to explore both Umidi and Nyamu more. I think there's a lot more to unpack with Umidi's hesitance to commit to an individual band after being stood up by her old mates. That's rough, buddy. And Nyamu's weird, bizarre, twisted love of Mutsumi, where her admiration of Mutsumi's acting quickly devolves into jealousy of Mutsumi's acting, leads to a visceral hatred of Mutsumi, only to then fall in love with Mutsumi. Dude, I don't get it at all. But there is some interesting stuff there. Mutsumi is probably the best written character across the series, save for maybe Urika. But Mutsumi's arc stretches across the entire season, giving her a lot more screen time, and her psychological portrayal is masterful. Sakiko is a character who I wish I liked more, but she's alright, and Urika, my favorite character, it's not particularly close, I wish we got more of her, but what we did get of her was really great. However, I'd be remiss to not bring up how incredible the technical aspects of this show are. When I say that this is in contention for being the best anime season, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about. The use of silence in this show is brilliant. The way it builds tension is genuinely visceral. You feel the tension yourself when watching it, or at least I did. And also the cinematography, dude. The way the shots are, it's just absolute cinema, dude. Memes aside, this is genuinely a masterclass in how to make a show pop. The direction is incredible from start to finish, from episode 1 to 13. Hell, from the last episode of Maigo, which was essentially the prologue to Ave Mujica, this show was a genuine masterpiece. And yet it's number 3! How the fuck did this happen? 10 out of 10. At number 2, I have Elden Ring. I think people are going to be upset. Why the hell is Elden Ring on here? And the answer to that is because I finished my journey with it this month. I completed this behemoth of a game this month. And when I say that, I should mention I have beaten the base game twice before. However, on this playthrough, spanning many, many months, I beat every single boss the game had to offer. All 208 bosses across the main game and the shadow of the Erd Tree. Taking bias out of the equation, Elden Ring is one of the greatest video games of all time. It's not my favorite. It's probably in my top 10, I would assume, but it's definitely not top 5, I don't think. However, it is incredible what From Software was able to do here. Straight up, I don't recommend doing what I did. Do not fight literally every boss. It's not how the game was meant to be played. Don't do every cave. Don't do every catacomb. Don't fight every deathbird. Don't fight every tibia mariner. It's not a fun way to play the game. But this playthrough did really prove to me that this game is just insane, dude. And some of that insanity was miserable. On the topic of misery, Promised Consort Radahn took me a staggering 432 attempts to beat. But I beat him. It's over. I don't ever need to beat him again. The winning attempt is on the channel, actually, if you care enough to watch that. But, again, Elden Ring is massive. Don't let anyone tell you you need to play a certain way. You don't. Play the game in whatever way you like. Personally, I generally play the game with no shield, summons, or magic, but that's mainly because my first experience with FromSoft was Bloodborne, which really dictated my aggressive gameplay style in Elden Ring. And also, I just recently started a new playthrough of Elden Ring where I'm doing a complete mage build, which is, I thought for sure would be a lot easier, and I'm sure once I get better at it, it will be a lot easier. But I actually kind of had to relearn Margit and Godric because I actually died to them. Crazy stuff, I know. But I would love to continue singing the praises of Elden Ring, but I plan to do that in a whole dedicated video to just Elden Ring, so I'll save my thoughts for then. 10 out of 10. At number 1, I have Honkai Impact 3rd, Chapter 31, Elysium Everlasting. This is the story of that golden era. It is the story of the 13 who did not become heroes. This is the story of you and me. We're here. This is the culmination of the Elysian Realm arc. One of the best arcs across gacha, one of my favorite arcs in fiction. Don't ask me which number it is. I don't know, but it's probably in my top 10 favorites. Maybe even top 5. This is my second favorite arc across gacha games, at least, only being behind Canto 6 of Limbus Company. And as a small aside, I want it to be known that I started this the same day I finished Depths of Malice, which was at the bottom of this list, a measly almost 5,000 words ago. But yeah, I finished Depths of Malice and started this within less than an hour. And it's funny how that worked out, given the positions on the mosaic. But alas, once more, let's delve into the best arc in Honkai Impact 3rd. And no, I did not stutter. We open with Eden. Whether the journey is good or bad, whether the ending is happy or sad, this beauty exists solely because of the people. Now, I'm going to be honest, my experience with Chapter 31 does have a stain on it, and that stain is named Nemu Monica. I'm not kidding. Yes, Nemu Monica from Euphoria. I know that the anime is, yeah, but I read the visual novel, and more importantly, the true ending of the visual novel, and I'ma just say it, dude. There was so much Nemu brain rot every time the word paradise rolled around here. Hopefully it won't happen too much. Anyways, Elysia opens. My name is Elysia, the symbol of paradise. We fight Mobius, Calpus, and Vilvi back to back to back. Afterwards, May barks at the false Elysia in front of her. You'll never, ever be her. Sakura links up with May, agreeing to defeat this Elysia and bring an end to the Herrscher of corruption. Sakura loses her life in the process, and surprising to me, Epona is still here, but she's corrupted. Don't worry about it, she's fine. At this point, I was sure that although I don't have a degree, I did read Umineko, and therefore, as the Flame Chasers are being picked off, Eden and Hua will be the last survivors for real, trust me, bro. Griseo and Kazuma go out back to back, double the depression. Hua sees a glimpse of Himiko Murata before her own passing, and Mobius laments to Klein. A snake hates to have anyone see her last moment before a projection of her embraces Klein. Partophelus, who I named Partofelish in the script, laments at the very end that being mortal means that she can do stupid things. Epona loses her life, and Sue opens his eyes for the very first time. Among the 13 Flame Chasers, those who did not become heroes of a bygone era, only Eden remained in the Elysian realm. So I was half right, okay? Listen, I was really close, alright? I do think it's worth mentioning here, the reason that I had faith in Eden being the final Flame Chaser was because I felt it would best mirror the story of the previous era, wherein Eden died gracefully, singing as the end of the world passed. Meanwhile, Elysia is back on the Elysian realm couch where we first meet her. Do you remember who I am? I've been happy all along. How can I not be happy when you're here? Eden apologizes for the wait. Miss Raiden, I'm elated. Ultimately, you found the answer yourself. This is what you've sought, the last secret buried in the realm. Elysia, the second of the Flame Chasers, the bearer of the signet of ego, the girl who deeply loves every human, was born a Herrscher. With this, Eden perishes. Elysia states at the end of her life in the previous era, tragedy isn't the end, it's the beginning of hope. Only humanity could think like that, and only humanity could try to realize such a conviction. So please tell me, at the end of this story, did I become human? Elysia, the very first Herrscher, the Herrscher of human ego. We then follow the story of that strange girl, whom loved humanity from the bottom of her heart, and was ultimately the enemy of humanity itself. A young girl finds herself overlooking a city of humans. If paradise does not exist, then I will create one myself. After some more Euphoria brain rot, we see a time skip, in which it's revealed that Elysia's suspicious behavior in the Elysian Realm game mode, in regards to her over-affection of May, was just because she likes cute girls. Oh, I'm sorry, I read the quote wrong. She states she loves pretty girls. anti-twist, I guess. Where throughout the Elysium Realm game mode, I was very suspicious of her because she was outwardly suspicious, but she literally just wanted to touch May's horns because she just wanted to. Anyways, Alicia, the Herrscher of human ego, finds herself in May's presence once more. Despite the deaths of all other Sims in the Elysian realm, here she stands. A few minigames pass, and it's time to defeat her, the first Herrscher. And this boss fight, with 2 phases and 13 health bars each, not even going to say anything that speaks for itself, but cool fight, genuinely. It's at this point that I began reflecting on Alicia's character. Alicia, who genuinely loves humanity, as a Herrscher, is destined to be the enemy of humanity. She fears isolation and puts up a perfect front to be as close to as many people as possible, and fears that if she is flawed, people will leave, deluding even herself into the idea that Alicia is perfectly human in every way. Cough, cough, it's Farina from Genshin. Although Alicia did come first, so maybe Farina was based off of Alicia, or at least they took some of the ideas, I would assume. And also, that was not my own reflection. That was a really good friend of mine, shout out Ryan. That was basically his words. I just kind of paraphrased them a little bit for the sake of this, but it did get me thinking about her character in a more interesting way. May declares that she will be the proof that the 13 flame chasers existed. Alicia then reflects on the idea of perfection. There is no true perfection in reality, but those who accept their flaws, face their agony, and carry their burdens with courage and wisdom are the ones closest to perfection. At this point, all of the flame chasers get their final words, but going over all of them is boring, so I'll just do the important ones. Mobius states, "Live your finest life after you leave, Lab Rat. Don't let me down." And then everybody else says stuff too, I don't know. And with that, Alicia, the flame chaser of human ego, states, "Thank you for coming here, for meeting us, for talking to us. Thank you for being willing to remember our names, to listen to our stories. As long as you remember us, this story will never vanish." Alicia vanquishes the Herrscher of corruption alongside the rest of the Flame Chasers, and May's journey through the Elysian realm comes to an end. This is obviously a lot different than how I would normally tackle an entry, but the Elysian realm arc is told to us as if it's a storybook, and I thought it'd be fitting to go this route for the entries as well. To be honest, Chapter 31 is not my favorite chapter across Honkai Impact 3rd, being only slightly behind Chapter 25 for me. And likewise, Alicia is my second favorite character in HI3 behind Kiana. However, Chapter 31 is without question a masterpiece. While I did debate which entry would be number 1, since literally the top 3 on this list are all 10 out of 10, I never doubted having this at number 1. Honkai Impact 3rd Elysium Everlasting is the best piece of media I consumed in August 2025. And I'm done! Thank God! I don't know why, I really started finding a flow this time, I feel like, with the script and writing it out, which normally I don't do for these videos. I normally don't write out an entire script. I'll more so just kind of do bullet points about things that I want to talk about. And I don't really know which method I'm going to use more so in the future, because we'll just see when we get there. But I got through some pretty good stuff this month. For the following month, there are some things to note. I will hopefully be finishing The Stranger, the original French book that Marcia from Limbus Company is based off of. I'm about 20 chapters into finally continuing One Piece, I know. I'm about 20 chapters into Thriller Bark, so that'll be on the next list. Probably, at least. I don't want to say for sure. Maybe Meant to Be is a manhwa that I've really been enjoying. I'm about 30 chapters into that. Expect at least Higurashi episode 2, maybe some more of that, I'm not sure. There are some seasonal animes like Lord of Mysteries and 99 that are probably going to be finishing sometime in September, so expect those as well. And I think that's it for now. Those are the only ones that you should expect. There are obviously going to be others that I'm going to pick up on a whim or whatever, but those are the ones that are most likely to be on the next list. But I think that is about all that I have for now. So, as always, take care, y'all.